As many of you will probably already know, today is International Women's Day. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about 20 women, 10 of whom are photographers, and we're going to be talking about their photography work, and 10 of whom are photography YouTubers making videos about photography, film photography, street photography, portrait photography, studio photography, you name it. We're going to have a little bit of a look at all of those. So we're going to start off with 10 of my favorite photographers. I've tried not to feature women that I featured in other videos before. I do have other videos that include a lot of amazing female photographers. So if you're interested, I'll link some of those in the description. But for this video, these are 10 new photographers that I haven't featured. To my knowledge anyway, I might have mentioned them briefly in the past, but these are 10 photographers who I love for a lot of different reasons. Most of whom are portrait photographers, but we'll dive into their work and talk a little bit about it. So this first photographer, Nomi, is a brilliant editorial fashion photographer. I can't remember how I first saw her work, but there's such a beauty in kind of the colors that she uses, the sets that she creates, the people that she photographs. I think that color is quite important in her work, even where it's not necessarily really bright images like these couple that we have. There's still a really strong sense of color. Although she does do studio work like this one, which I absolutely love, this is a bit more of like an intricate set design kind of vibe. The other kind of work that she does that I really like anyway is very location orientated, and there is a really strong sense of location. I love this one that looks like, I don't know where this is, but it could be like somewhere in Italy or Greece or something like that. When I think about the fashion side of my work, personally, this is like what I aspire to be creating. These really well thought out stories with beautiful location, beautiful color. I don't know if this is film, I don't know if this is digital. It looks to me like film, but you know, sometimes I get that bit wrong. But this shot in particular, this looks like a hand printed film. This one of the guy in the red jacket, the red cardigan. All of these photographers are going to be linked in the description. So this is just kind of like me showing you a little snippet of their work and their world. And if there is more that you want to see of them, and I really do recommend diving into their work and having a look, then you can do so by clicking the link in the description and following their work. But next up, this next photographer, Leah, is one that I have followed for a long time. I think I first saw her work when I saw this Brick magazine cover with Grandmaster Flash. I think that was maybe some of the work I saw first from her. Again, I'm pretty sure this is film. Really beautiful work. A lot of this is more studio, so coming out of that location based kind of work that we were just talking about. But Leah really shows how like simplicity is so important and instrumental in creating good photos. The next photographer is more of like a documentary style, I would say, although it is very, you know, portrait and commercial photography. There is like a different sense of like documentary to the kind of Vogue fashion stuff that we've been looking at before. And I think that that kind of sense of, you know, she obviously documents her surroundings and her experiences, and that is very evident in the way that she photographs. And I also think that there's like almost a timeless nature because of that. Again, it looks like film to me, and I think that kind of always helps to lean into that timeless nature, I guess. This next photographer is a photographer, again, who does a lot of studio-based stuff. The work that I particularly like of Sylvia's is this beauty stuff that she did, this still life beauty stuff, because I just thought it was really interesting to see the, you know, the application and also the applicator in the same kind of story. You have the beauty photo and then you have this product photo that is like still life of the, you know, tools that have been used to create this look. And I think that was a really interesting way of just kind of like laying that story out. I really do like it when you have like fashion photographers or portrait photographers play around with still life and stuff like that. I think there's a different perspective that fashion photographers have within their work that when applied to still life is actually really lovely and interesting. Next up, this photographer has amazing environmental portraiture. There's such a range of kind of work that she has within her portfolio. I love this one of the guy in the, I think it's the baseball mitt, like jumping. I mean, it's so different to kind of the other stuff, like her portrait of Greta Thunberg, for example. You put those two together, and although they're completely different genres, you can see in style, even though they're shot differently, they're lit differently, they're probably different cameras or whatever, there is still that kind of overlapping style that you can see, which is really nice. Next up is a photographer who I love the work of, and I'm actually very lucky to call her a friend of mine, and her work is just beautiful, really beautiful portraits, very simple but emotive portraits. I've seen Eben work, like I've been at a shoot where she's like kind of doing her thing before, and like just kind of seeing how naturally it comes to her. Like I think it's a really good example of like no two people see the world in the same way, because I'm looking at this scene and then what she's kind of getting out of this scene is so different to anything that I'm seeing. And yeah, her work is really beautiful. Next up is a photographer that I think I discovered first on TikTok, which is great. You know, we love TikTok for introducing new photographers, and I think that has been one of the really nice things in terms of like accessibility for new and upcoming photographers, is that they've been able to like hop onto this platform and be seen by people. And Radhika, I don't know if she started on TikTok, I don't know if that's where she kind of grew her traction and her audience from, but it's definitely where I first saw her work. And she just shoots studio work, like mostly editorials with like talent for magazines, but she shoots it in such a way that is like different. Like from her lighting to her grade, there's this kind of like vintage feel to her work, but also like very modern and of the time. She's also a photographer who has a really strong sense of color. If you guys haven't noticed by now, I really love photographers who work well with color, and she is definitely not an exception. Next up is Latoya, who is a photographer who has been in, you know, my favorite photographer list, like in my head, my mental list, for a really long time. Her work is so beautiful. Every time she posts something on Instagram, I'm just like kind of blown away by her skill and again her ability to convey emotion with her portraits. This shoot that she did with this woman who is obviously an Arsenal supporter, this was one of maybe the first projects that I saw of hers, if I can remember correctly, and I was just drawn in by, again, the way that she uses the location, the harsh direct flash. I love it in this environment because it's so juxtaposing to the kind of subject and what you would expect of maybe this kind of image, you know, this lady knitting, and then having this like really harsh light on her. It's just such a pleasing juxtaposition. But she has such a beautiful breadth of work. She does a lot of commercial work, but what I like a lot is a lot of her like personal projects. I would definitely recommend you to head over and check out the rest of her work, because she's got way too much work for me to put into one video. This next photographer is a photographer who I've only been following for a very short amount of time. I first saw her work with Renee Rapp. I think it was for the Sweet Green commercial. There was like this editorial and it was just really playful and fun. And then I kind of started to follow her and see some of the other work that she was creating. She works with a lot of other people, namely she works with Ariana Grande a lot. So there are some like lovely, beautiful photos of Ariana Grande, both posed and more documentary style, that I love. And she also does live music, and you guys know I'm also a live music photographer, so it's nice to kind of see those photographers who kind of move between the different genres within their work. And finally, on my list of 10 photographers, before we move into the YouTube photographers, is another person who I'm very grateful to have worked alongside before. Sharon Lopez is a brilliant photographer. I worked with her over a couple of festivals over the years. Not only is she an amazing live music photographer, she's also a great portrait photographer, documentary style. I think she recently did a tour with Real Madrid, and the work that she kind of took from that was like nothing I've ever seen in kind of like the football and sports space before. I think, yeah, it's just a testament that she can kind of transfer those skills that she has across so many different genres so beautifully. But that is it for the photography section of today's video. We're going to move into YouTube photographers now, have a little look on their channels and talk to you guys about why I think you should definitely subscribe. Again, all of the photographers and all of the YouTubers are going to be linked in the description, so please do head over and check them out. First up is Jessie Shaw, who some of you may already know her YouTube. There might be a few on here that you guys know already, hopefully a few that you don't know that you can kind of get new eyes on their channel. Jessie is a London-based photographer. She does a lot of portrait photography again. She shows the behind the scenes. She runs a studio. She has like her own studio in Hackney, so there's like tons of videos on her channel about setting up that studio and about working in that studio, etc. If you're into film photography, portrait photography, studio photography, any of that sort of stuff, you will find it on her channel. I also absolutely love the way she edits her videos. They're so playful and fun, but also educational. So yeah, definitely head over and check her out. Next up, we've got Lucy Lumen, who again, you guys will probably know. We're starting off with people who are kind of in a similar niche to my channel. So I'd imagine you guys will already know about Lucy, but if you don't, definitely head over. She not only creates amazing YouTube videos about film photography, all things photography. She also has a podcast and a Substack as well, which are just brilliant resources if you are a photographer or if you just want to engage in photography content, I guess. She's kind of like a one-woman band for all of that stuff. Next up, we've got Lisa, whose channel I've only recently discovered, but she, again, creates videos about film photography, Fujifilm. If you guys are interested in Fujifilm, she's a great creator in that niche. I'm personally not someone that shoots on Fujifilm, so you're not going to see that kind of video on my channel. If you have a X100V or whatever they're called, and you're into that kind of photography, she does do a couple of videos on Fujifilm as well as just generally making videos about photography. Next up is Grain Check, who I'm sure you guys know Grain Check because her videos in particular are so beautifully produced. That is the pinnacle of production for me, is would be creating a video like one of hers. Again, pretty much all of her videos are about film photography, but the actual videos themselves are so beautiful that even if you don't do film photography, you just got to watch the videos for the sake of enjoying a well-produced video. Next up is a photographer whose channel I followed since probably the beginning of me even starting as a photographer, and that is Julia. And Julia is based in Australia, I think. I think a couple of these creators, like Lucy, she's also Australian. And her work is predominantly around portrait photography. I think she shoots on Sony. Her work is great. There's loads of really hands-on reviews on different lenses, working with clients, like how to pose people, lots of behind the scenes kind of content. So if you're into that sort of thing, I definitely recommend Julia. She was a great resource for me when I was starting out in photography, and I still thoroughly enjoy watching her videos now. The next channel that I want to talk about is Sissy Lou, who is a photographer who I have only really been introduced to relatively recently, but I absolutely love her way of creating. I love her photography work. I love the way that she creates videos. I think I maybe saw kind of her short form videos before I saw her long form videos. But again, another photographer who is not only a brilliant photographer, but is very skilled in the art of making a good YouTube video or a good video just in general. Next up, we have someone who does a little bit the content's different to the photographers that I've spoken about so far, and I think that's nice as well because your subscription feed, you want to change it up a little bit, and that is Tatiana Hopper, who I'm sure many of you already follow. But Tatiana creates amazing videos that are about the history of photography. She looks at the work of other people. She does deep dives into different photographers from different points in history, some more modern history, contemporary history, and some a lot further back, and looks at their work and what they were doing within their time of existing. So if you're interested in more video essay kind of stuff, learning and being inspired by a breadth of different photographers, then Tatiana's channel is definitely the one to watch. Next up, we have Analog Diaries, which is a channel that sounds just like what it is. It is all about film photography, although there are a few videos here as well about different things. I think there was one that I watched about making a canvas backdrop, which is really interesting to me because that's actually something that I started a year ago and haven't really picked up the momentum with. So I painted one last year and I want to paint some more. So I watched that one recently just to inspire me and get me back into that idea of actually, no, that's something I need to do. But she has stuff from darkroom printing to shooting in a studio. All of that sort of stuff is on her channel. And next up we have Archie's Lens, and Archie creates more vlog style content, I would say, and a little bit more similarly to how Ejatu's style from the first photographer that I mentioned in this section of the video. A little bit more her style of being more fun. It's just, even if she wasn't a photographer, I'd still watch it kind of vibe. That's the vibe it kind of gives me. In terms of actually the photography content, there's film photography, editing videos, reviews, photo vlogs, all of that sort of stuff. Really wholesome content that I just love watching. And also, of course, a great photographer as well. And then finally, I can't believe this list has gone so quickly. I think I'm gonna have to do another one soon. But finally, on my list of 10 YouTube photographers or photography YouTubers, however you want to spin it, is Flora K. And Flora creates work that, again, is kind of similar to Archie's that I was just talking about, like that vlog kind of content, the stuff that's just like really easy to put on and just watch with a cup of tea. But she also has a lot of videos about self-portraiture, about film photography, and also some like really nice talking to camera stuff that's like just general thoughts on creativity and photography and all of that good stuff. But that is it for today's video. There's 10 amazing photographers and 10 amazing YouTube channels that I think you should watch, all of whom are women, run by women, created by women. So if you do anything today, if you do anything on International Women's Day, head to the description and check out one of these amazing creatives, because you never know, you might just find your new favorite photographer or your new favorite YouTube channel. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.